All right, well, you remember last week we spoke quite a bit about the documentary that had come out, produced by RTE in Ireland, about the abattoir in Ireland that has now been temporarily closed because there was evidence of cruelty. Well, no sooner had Horse Racing Ireland and the Irish Horse Racing Regulatory Board got their heads around how to respond to that, then there was some footage that was published of indeterminate time, it has to be said, but can't be all that long ago given the branding on the horse box, of Shark Hanlon's lorry driving along in Ireland with a trailer with an open, dead horse on the back. Dave, this went viral on social media. It garnered a significant reaction, though not perhaps the reaction that you might have expected. No, maybe Ascot Week had
very interesting because
Shark Hanlon apologised, said that the horse had originally been covered with a tarpaulin, which had come off. Though yeah. I conjecture, I'm not sure that would have made an awful lot of difference.
I think the one interesting thing was this story broke on Monday afternoon, and certainly in terms of sort of print and internet, most people are knee deep in Royal Ascot at this point. So it didn't really get the exposure that it could have done. On one hand, it's very interesting because, of course, Shark Hanlon and Hewick have become a social media sensation, haven't they?
For all the right reasons.
For all the right reasons. You know, the achievements of the horse, the fact that he's a cult hero, Hewick, isn't he? Bought for, you know, the price of a cow, or 800 quid, whatever it was, and drinking a pint in a pub, all that sort of stuff. And in terms of, obviously, we're talking about optics here, aren't we? There was no cruelty to the horse. The horse was dead. It's a bit like the Gordon Elliott dead horse situation, where it's about respect to the thoroughbred rather than cruelty. And in this case, they fell well short. If the tarpaulin did come off the horse's carcass, well, stop the lorry and replace it. And be aware that everybody these days is a cameraman or a camera operator. That in the same way that camera phones and social media have been really positive for Shark Hanlon and particularly for Hewick, they're also there to record things like this that are obviously hugely negative too.
Yeah, it cuts both ways. Our next topic today is Sparkling Plenty. This was the filly that realised, well, the hammer fell at 8.1 million guineas at the Goffs London sale. Now, this was a vendor buyback. Monsieur Dubois, who owned and bred the filly, clearly valued her more highly than that. There were two genuine bids just underneath that, one of which was from Kia Jarabjan, high sevens, but the owner valued her more highly. He then, out of the ring, sold her. What goes down on paper is that Al Shakab Racing bought her for 5 million, but they've only bought a portion of her. We don't know how much. This was pretty unusual, Richard. I mean, you've seen a lot in the auction ring. I don't suppose you've seen anything like this, have you?
Not a buyback. I mean, there's lots of buybacks at every sale we go to, but that was a pretty high-profile one. You can argue it both ways. A few people said to me, look, a lot of newcomers come to that sale, and it's a high-profile sale. Is it good for people to be seeing that somebody can buy a horseback for 8.1 million? At the end of the day, you know, Monsieur Dubois owned the filly, and it was his prerogative to bid on his own filly.
And I presume that a big part of that is also what was going on underneath that bid. And what underneath that bid were two people who were bidding really big sums of money who were totally genuine bidders. There was no suggestion that this was an artificially inflated price. It wasn't the value that he was putting on her.
No, that's it. I mean, at the end of the day, I think auction fever sometimes gets to vendors as well as to purchasers. And as I say, it's his prerogative to bid as high as he wants.
OK. If you wanted to buy a Prix de Diane winner with a pedigree, with a good pedigree as well, the minute after she'd won the Prix de Diane, what would you expect to pay? I mean, the rarity of that is extraordinary.
Yeah, and I would say actually, I think the deal was done at around 5 million. That's probably about where you'd expect it to be. And I'd say that Al Shakab have bought a seriously talented.
But they haven't bought all of her for 5 million.
No, they haven't bought all of her, but they've bought into it at a price of 5 million, I believe. And you know, look, she's a collector's item, phenomenal pedigree, classic winner. She was unlucky in the French Guineas, and I think it's still probably all ahead of her.
OK. So that would have been about where your valuation sat. If you'd sat around in the office and gone, right, boys, and girls, there's a Prix de Diane winner on the table here. What do we give for this?
Yeah, beforehand I'd probably have said 4 to 5 million. But again, usually when you're valuing these things, they make more than you think because they're collector's items and it's rare they come to the market.
Yeah, and Monsieur Dubois has built up an amazing empire from scratch, effectively, both in the trotting world and now with thoroughbreds. So good luck to the new connections of Sparkling Plenty. Frankie Dettori was at Ascot this week, but he wasn't riding. He was there for the first 3 days doing a little bit of corporate work, did the odd telly interview, but didn't do a big TV job, as was half expected. And previously, his daughter Ella had married your brother, Sean, last weekend.
Yeah, they got married last weekend in Devon. Yeah, it was a beautiful occasion.
And how do you think he was with kind of being there but not being there at Ascot? He did say at one point, in sort of somewhere deep in him, he'd quite fancy it, but didn't want to let people down who'd said farewell to him.
He's quite competitive, and I think he finds it difficult watching horses that he would have rode win, but I don't think that was the case this time around.
No.
There wasn't anything he missed out on, and yeah, look, he's a man to his word, right? He said he was going to be there, and fair play came to Ascot, where everyone had great memories of him.
And I suppose also, if you do say, well, I'll take a few rides, what he doesn't want to be doing is picking up odds and sods, does he?
Well, no. Do you really want to do that? Look, he's done right he stayed true to his word. He said he was retiring over here, and he's been doing really well in America. Yeah. I'm glad he came over, showing his face around Ascot. I think many people were glad to see him, but I think he wouldn't have benefited for riding there, I don't think.
And you sensed after a couple of days he was kind of done, because he needs to be in. He needs to be in it.
Absolutely. I mean, I must admit, going into Royal Ascot, I thought it was a great shame that Frankie wasn't going to ride there. I thought that, given the general sort of rather doom-laden scenario that we have at the moment, that Dettori would have really lifted that. But as it turned out, I think it was better that he didn't. It didn't need Frankie dipping in for for a few rides and maybe not winning. He's done a lot of the heavy lifting when it comes to racing's PR in the past. It's now the time for Sean and everyone else to share that load, and I think everybody did it extremely well.
We were just talking earlier on about poor old Sheen Murphy being saddled with you're going to be the next Frankie Dettori with the media. You're not getting this as well, are you? Come on, Sean.
Do you know, actually, when I came in on Rosalind, there was, I don't know why, just back of my mind, I thought, I do a Frankie off this one. And I thought, don't be stupid, you'll probably hurt yourself. You can break my ankle on the way down.
What is the most interesting or outlandish celebration you've done, or have you always just kept it super?
I've always kept it just super composed. I know there's the odd time. I don't know, for whatever reason. I think when I won the Neil Gwynn, I started punching the air like some kind of lunatic. But
who was that?
I pulled myself aside about that.
Now remind me, which one?
It was one of Amma Racing's horse. Oh, what was she called now? Mama's Girl.
Okay. Yeah, it was a Hanlon horse.
Yeah.
Did Senior see that?
Probably.
I wonder what he'd have made of it. Let's talk about Godolphin, because Said bin Sarur had a winner at Royal Ascot at the Hunt Cup. Charlie Appleby didn't have a winner. Notable Speech was really disappointing, but it wasn't so much that he didn't have a winner or Notable Speech was disappointing, Richard. It was the lack of runners that surprised me. You guys had how many in the end?
27,
yeah.
28. Yeah.
I think Charlie had 7. Now, he's got 17 horses in the States.
Yeah.
Who could easily have been at Ascot if they weren't there.
Yeah.
But what do you understand is the situation here at a meeting which was always absolutely top priority?
Oh, look, I'm obviously an outsider looking in, but I think Godolphin's a global brand. And, you've just said Charlie's got 17 high-level stakes performers in America. Rebels Romance has been to Qatar, been to Dubai. been to
Hong Kong. I mean, that was an amazing win the other day from him.
So I think it's a global brand, and I think that's probably a big part of Charlie's remit, is to make sure that he's winning all over the world, which is exactly what he's doing. And maybe this year, because of what's happening in the States and horses like that, it just didn't fall together. But they're winning all over the world. So I think he's probably he's carrying out his remit, I would say.
And I'm guessing, Dave, that one of the reasons why they used to be in every race was because Sheikh Mohammed would be at Ascot. He has not been a visible presence on a British racecourse for quite some time. Absolutely
right. Yeah, the 6 runners. I mean, there were some high-profile ones, weren't there? As you say, Notable Speech, Diamond Rain, Mountain Breeze was another disappointment. And obviously, they are a global brand, but Royal Ascot is one of the global marquee meetings, isn't it? It's arguably the most famous race meeting in the world. So it has to go down as a disappointing week. Obviously, they did have Wild Tiger, didn't they, in the
Hunt Cup.
In the Hunt Cup
for Saeed
and for Ashin. But yeah, it's a low profile, and surely you want your best horses. The biggest concerns need a big presence at those massive meetings, and Godolphin didn't have that.
Callum Shepherd, one of the most popular results of the week, winning on Isle of Jura for George Scott. We touched on this earlier, Sean. We all know about Callum losing the ride on Ambiente Friendly before the Derby, and a lot of people would have been very pleased for him to have a big success. Was it a little bit more than that, though?
I think he's. Oh, I'm not going to say like he's just found he's had a couple of years where he found things difficult, and he's such a great character, and things have been going really right for him, and I think he took it to heart a little bit with the Derby ride, because there wasn't any real reason for him not to ride the horse in the Derby. But look, it's happened to everyone, and he's had a great relationship with his horse, and for him to keep the ride in an Ascot and to win, you can see exactly what it meant to him, and I think everybody present in the weigh room was delighted for him.
And he gave a lovely interview afterwards to Rishi on ITV. He was clearly overcome. But so often during the course of the week, Richard, we saw just how much these victories did mean to people, whether they be breeders, owners, trainers, and particularly jockeys.
Yeah, it was actually quite cool when he went past the winning post. I was up at the top of the stand. Wathnan had a box, and I was up there, and we're sort of maybe 80 yards past the finishing post, and he let out a roar that, I mean, we could hear from 4 floors up, and it lasted for quite a long time. And I think it was just that sort of release of pure emotion, and it was actually magic. And you could see people. It was amazing. It was a sort of primeval roar, and it was great.
There was also the tribute to Stefano Kerki, his friend, absolutely. And he spoke about Stefano and Stefano's family, and again he contextualised the proper tragedy with professional frustration. It was superb. Again, I'm sounding like a broken record here, but Callum Shepherd would not, I don't think, describe himself as a natural performer. He's quite shy. He's obviously a deep thinker, and he's a very good talker. But for all that he's not a song and dance man, that was just compelling. Even it was compelling to watch and to listen to read the quotes on one screen as you'd put them in. Like this was just box office stuff. And I'm really old school when it comes to reporting. It takes a hell of a lot for me to ring the office and say, I don't think we should put the Group 1 race as the lead today. Like I have a mental problem with doing that. But when it was that, I texted them and said, can we please not a picture of whoever wins the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes? Can we put a picture of Isle of Jura? Because that's the story.
And then, of course, you got the first back-to-back winner of the Queen Elizabeth II Jubilee Stakes since the 1950s, and only the 3rd one in history, and the first one since it was a Group 1. And you had all the emotion of young Eddie Hills afterwards with his top hat and floods of tears. So then you ring the editor again and say, actually, we've got quite a cute kid here, hat, tears.
Nearly, but not quite. There were loads of good stories yesterday afternoon, but that was the one. That was the one. A jockey talking about, just putting everything in context. We all know what Callum Shepherd's been through over the last few weeks and months, and to have that with a horse who was rated 71 last July and gave him that career momentum, winning the Triple Crown in Bahrain, it was great stuff.
And we're going to be talking to George Scott a little bit later, I think, so we can pay tribute to his training skills. Raphael Freire has had a licence before in Norway, and he's had runners in England before as well under that Norwegian licence, but now he is officially licensed in Kia Jarabshan's premises as Amo Racing's trainer in Lambourne. This was the premises that was also under the auspices of Dominic French-Davis for a while. It was always the understanding that this would happen. I had suggested, Dave, earlier this week that this should have been more explicit in communications up to this point, but I never got the feeling from anyone connected to this operation that there was any secret about the intention here.
I don't think so. Is it incumbent on every training operation to open their doors or contact the media and say, by the way, his name is, surely over the centuries in horse racing, we know that there's been one name above the door and other people have been playing different roles within that organisation, some of them extremely important roles. So I think that in this case it was a little bit overplayed, not to put too fine a point on it. Kia Jarabshan is often wheeled out as racing's pantomime villain, and I think that suited in this case.
OK. What are we expecting from the operation as a whole, do you think, moving forward? Not a winner at Ascot, but in fact, their big guns were injured.
Sure.
King of Steel, Buccaneer Fuerte on the eve of the meeting, or Nalea, so they didn't have a great hand going in.
Yeah, I mean...
Lots ran well, particularly some two-year-olds.
Yes, and Kia Jarabshan would look back on Royal Ascot 2024 and think it was a disappointment, no doubt. With regard to Raphael Freire, well, he's had 5 runners in the 2-year-old race. Starts off in the Coventry. I mean, that's a bit like
with an unraced
your operatic debut at La Scala, isn't it? And singing Tosca or whatever. I mean, it's a big start, even with a horse that cost £1 million.
Did you make your operatic debut at La Scala?
I didn't. I made it at Epsom Playhouse, actually. Thank you.
That's still pretty esteemed, isn't it, Epsom Playhouse?
in front of the mayor of Epsom with his mayoral chains. Did
he have a tie on this time?
I think he did, yeah, I think he did.
Was he more enthused about the Opera House than he was about the Derby?
I'm not sure.
Wouldn't be hard, would it?
Particularly enthused about my role, but there we go.
Did you get good notices from the Ewell advertiser?
It was fine. We took it to the Minnock in Cornwall, and it was great fun. But I'm sure people haven't tuned in to listen to me relate my amateur opera.
Well, judging by the faces on the two, and on my right, they're quite enjoying this. I could just keep going.
Are you going to break out into song? Are we going to?
No, I'm certainly not. I'm certainly not. Who's next? Watering.
It's the turf meets the surf, by the way. Watering. We had a conversation on this show last week where I had a bit of a friendly spat with Neil Channing about putting water on the track, and there was the sort of school of thought that Chris Dickel should just leave it alone, leave it to nature. Well, if he'd done that, I think we know by now with the baking temperatures it would have been pretty firm. As it was, he put sort of between 3 and 5 mils on each of the tracks each day just to maintain it. From your point of view, Sean, how did the ground ride throughout the week? What was it like, say, Saturday relative to Tuesday? Did it hold up OK? Was the integrity good? Was it too quick? Did he put too much water on? What was the...
Oh, that's a lot. To be fair, I walked the track on the first day, and anyone that I seen walking the track that I stopped to talk to, we were all in agreement on how pristine he had it. It was good to firm ground, felt like there was no jar, and it rode as such. Mm-hmm. Throughout the week, I think he'd done well to keep it, without it going too firm. He kept it at good to firm. At certain races, maybe later on in the afternoon, it livened up a little bit, as it would.
Quite lively on the round, I thought.
It was lively on the round, but I think you feel it more on the round when you're going down the hill, down the back. As you would, going down the hill when it's firm, you're going to feel it a hell of a lot more than when you start meeting the ground on the other side. But I did think it held up really well. It didn't get as poached. Some years it can get very poached. And I think because we had the consistent weather and he watered it consistently, it just held a lot better.
Is there a lesson in there as well, insofar as that because we had a lot of rain in the spring and he hadn't been putting loads of water on in order to maintain it, that when it did come to the meeting, the track was actually in slightly more natural shape. The elements had actually done their job rather than loads of irrigation in the lead up to it.
To be fair, that helps quite a lot, because I think that's what happened in recent years when the rain came and we changed to the inside course. And the inside course always held up a lot better because, well, they don't water and they let it naturally do its thing throughout the summer, don't they? So I think that was a massive help that he didn't touch it for the whole spring.
OK. Dave, do you have a last word on the watering, or...?
No, I was going to read out the totals, but
Go for it.
Well, Monday night, 5 on the straight, 5 on the round. No, people fall asleep. I've got a break.
Honestly, it's interesting. I thought you were going to give me crowd figures or something.
No, I'd just written down the number of millimetres on the straight and the round course. It really, honestly, it really isn't.
Nah, that'll do. Those were this week's talking points.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.